Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to Beautifully Broken. My name is Sabby, and if you don't know who I am, I started a YouTube channel called Beautifully Broken over a year ago, where I started giving tips, guidance, tools, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, our past and present stories, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I help others gain a deeper understanding of themselves so that they can heal what needs to be healed in order to move forward into a happier sense of self. Welcome back, everyone, to Beautifully Broken. My name is Sabby, and today I get to sit down with a new friend of mine. His name is Phil. I met him through Quill, who runs a poetry page, and Phil also does some poetry as well, and I am very excited and happy to get to know him and have this conversation, and I feel like it'll be very, very cool, very fun, very different vibe.
My name's Phil. I grew up in South London. I suppose part of my journey really over the last probably 7 or 8 months has really been putting myself out there in terms of social media, connecting with some like-minded people like Quill, who I met through Instagram. And together we've been working on a page called Warriors Quill, where the idea is we're just trying to promote mental health, trying to sort of like get people to share their writing or their poetry or their stories around mental health. It can be as light-hearted or as dark-hearted as you want. Nothing's off topic, as it should be with mental health, and I think that's probably one of the biggest stigmas we've got. Is the fact that people feel like mental health is like this little taboo section, but then there's actually like a few more sub taboo sections under that as well. It's just I want to be able to say that hopefully I've connected with some like-minded people that I've shared some stories with, and they've shared theirs with me, and everyone's better for it.
So how did writing become a form of expression for you with your mental health? How did that start? Was it something you always did, or is it new?
So my writing journey started when I was 13. My nan died the day before my 13th birthday, and that had a massive impact on me in my life because of what I'd already been through growing up. So when I lost her, it was kind of like this, felt like a slap in the face from the universe. And there was no one that I could talk to. And I tried. No one understood. No one kind of got what I was trying to explain or talk about. And even if they maybe understood, they didn't want to, because they were just that uncomfortable about it. So for me, the only thing I could think to do was to write everything down, because I couldn't talk to anyone. So I thought, screw it, let's just write it down and see what happens. And then from there, it just kind of turned into me writing down memories and thoughts, and then that kind of turned into making sort of like little stories, and then that turned into poetry. That's pretty much where I got stuck. Writing poetry was sort of like, I don't know, it just felt like this this way of being able to express myself without feeling like I was making other people vulnerable or making them feel uncomfortable. So that's how that started.
I too turned to writing as well. Very different reason. I had a teacher that told me I was a shit writer, and I went, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then I fell in love with it just because of the same reason. Sometimes when you don't have anyone else to talk to, your words and that writing and that craft is the closest thing you have to you. Through all of your poetry or writing, and I mean any writing work that you've done, what's your favorite to write? Is it poetry, or do you write short stories still?
I still do short stories as well. I think with the short stories, I kind of get it starts off as a short story, and then before I know it, it's like 20, 30 pages in, and I'm like, this is not a short story. I've not even started getting into it yet. What's going on? So then I kind of like, I'll put that to one side, and I'll start writing some haikus, or some basic prose poetry, to just kind of like cleanse the palette. And then I'll revisit my short story and see if I can actually chop it down a little bit into maybe 2 or 3 pages. I've tried. I'm not saying that it was successful. I've tried. But yeah, the short story I'm working on at the moment is actually about a sprite, and encountering a sprite whilst lost in the woods, with a group of people, and I'm the only one that can see this sprite.
Do you feel like that kind of correlates to your own life, and you're spinning it on like a different lens a little bit? Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
Literally,
yeah.
yes.
There's no hidden meaning here. It's literally how I feel. So one of the weirdest things I think I can ever tell anyone that I meet is, so everyone kind of like knows about, how you can pick up on vibes of people. And some people are better at it than others, and you call those people empaths, and they can pick up on good vibes, bad vibes, or whatever's going on for that person, and they get this urge to go and talk to them or help them, or just seeing what's going on for them. For me, it's a little bit different. I get that, and this is where it gets a bit weird. So this is maybe right. You finish the conversation here. It's like, God damn, this guy's crazy. If someone's going through a really bad time, and I mean like the most horrific time in their life, I can see that. If you imagine on a really hot summer's day and you look at the roof of a car or on a frying pan, you can see the heat kind of like shimmering off of something.
Yeah,
that's what I can see off of this person's head.
That's actually really cool. I'm a very spiritual person, so for me, I resonate with that. I actually told Quill that I was an empath as well. So for me, it's when you're an empath and you also struggle with your mental health, it is the most overwhelming thing in the world, because you not only feel your emotions and your pain, but you feel other people's, or you could be doing just fine, and all of a sudden someone else's stuff just hits you.
And I think it gets worse is when maybe you're having a bad time, and then you come across or encounter someone that's having a bad time as well, and it's like this double whammy of just shit feelings. It's so intense sometimes. But that whole visual thing, I've only experienced that twice, but on both occasions they had just lost someone. So wow. It's pretty intense.
That is very intense, 100%. So with your own mental health journey, how has that impacted you? How do you get through that? Could you give an example of maybe when that really overwhelmed you and how you could have come out of it?
So this is the whole thing about the journey in general, and people that are going through this this struggle. It's I spent 20 years trying to work that out, and it's only really been in the last 6 months where I feel like it's clicked. Because a lot of the time I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between my pain and someone else's pain. I wouldn't be able to know if I was hurting or if someone else was hurting, and that was hard, especially when some of the stuff that I went through when I was younger, it wasn't just me that was hurting, my family around me was hurting, and I kind of did my best to just put on the blinkers and to just carry on like everything was normal. But there's only so long you can do that for before eventually you put your foot out one day and next thing you know, you're in the bottom of a hole. It gets tough sometimes, but I think that, you need to find something where you can release some of that emotion and some of those feelings. And for me, that was writing. For a lot of people, it might be something like music or some other type of expression that they've got in their life, and that's a good thing to have. And for me, whenever I was really struggling, music was always my easy option to go to rather than writing, because if I was really struggling, there was no way I was going to concentrate to write.
Yeah.
So music was 3 minutes of just that's better,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was always my go-to for a little pick-me-up.
Do you play any instruments musically, or do you mean just listening to music?
Both. So
Yeah.
I play drums. That's really where my passion lies in terms of music. My goal is for this year to learn guitar, which should be interesting, because I've got sausage fingers and they're not very long. So I don't know if I'm going to be any good at that. Probably not. I might stick to bass or something. There's fewer strings to use.
Fewer strings.
Yeah.
I have small hands. I have child hands, so I couldn't. I tried to play guitar and I couldn't reach everything, so it just didn't work.
Hey, not everyone can be blessed with long fingers,
Exactly. Like, now just imagine a scary monster with long fingers, and that's all my brain has gone to. For music, what do you like to listen to? What's the most cathartic, and what do you like to play? I'd like to know both.
So some of my favorite songs that I like to play along to is Rage Against the Machine, because it's fairly basic, but it's also pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
So yes, there's nothing really overly quick about it or too intricate about it, but you can get some real feeling out of playing to a lot of their songs, especially when you've got your headphones on and you're actually listening to the whole track as well. You feel like you get really into the zone. So yeah, that's what I like. Something like that, just something with a bit of aggression behind it, but it's also got a message.
I like that. Yeah.
So that's what I like playing to. In terms of listening to, I'll listen to anything as long as I think it sounds good. Yeah, so I like stuff from the 50s and 60s. I like proper rock and roll, Buddy Holly, Elvis, the Beatles. I like deathcore. I like R&B. I like hip hop. I grew up in South London, so a lot of the stuff I was listening to was a lot of R&B and a lot of hip hop, some grime, stuff like that. So, but a lot of that music again was sort of like percussion orientated. So I think that's where my love of drums actually come from before I started getting into actual rock music, I suppose.
That's cool. I like that. For me, when I listen to music, it helps me feel my feelings. Do you feel that that's the same way for you? It kind of helps you feel what you need to feel, or you listen to the lyrics of what someone else is singing, and it makes you kind of understand that in a different way.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, what I would used to do is, depending on how I was feeling, it would depend on what I'd play and what I'd listen to. Now, I think of it in a slightly different way. Was I listening to happy music because I was happy, or because I was feeling sad and wanted to pick me up? Was I listening to sad music because I wasn't used to feeling so happy, so that I felt like I needed something to bring me down a little bit? And I even now I still kind of struggle with that that realization of, why am I listening to what I'm listening to right now? It's am I listening to it just because it sounds good, or am I listening to it because I'm connecting to it in a different way? But yeah, I mean, I've been I've been listening to a band called Spite.
I don't think I've heard of them.
No, I don't think you would have done. They're quite angry.
Oh no, my first concert in college was Slipknot.
Oh,
yeah.
A girl after my own heart.
Yeah.
So one of my first gigs I ever went to, Well, actually, my first gig I ever went to was to go see Korn.
Oh, really? I've
Yeah,
never seen them live. I've never
it was
seen them live.
yeah, that was a wow. Yeah, 16 years old, going to a Korn concert, and wow. I don't think I really appreciated what I was letting myself in for that night.
I had the same feeling with Incubus. I saw Incubus live, and I just
Yeah.
fell in love, not with the lead singer, but I fell in love with just the energy of the music and how I felt. To go back to what you were saying, I resonate with the same thing. I do that too. You have my wheels turning, because now I think, am I listening to sad music because I feel like I need to feel it, or am I listening to it because I was happy and now I want to feel sad? Why do you think we do that? Why do you think that is?
I mean, there's a couple of reasons. I think because maybe we're so used to living our lives, or maybe our perception of what we're experiencing as happy or sad, that we feel the need for an external input to give us some form of balance or equilibrium. So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I spent a lot of basically all of my teens and all of my 20s. Really, I was one unhappy bastard. I was not happy, and I was no fun to be around. Really. Because there's only so many times you can put the mask on and pretend to be okay before that mask cracks or falls off, and you can't help but show exactly how you're feeling. So yeah, so that's why I really enjoy music, because I can sit there. I don't have to engage with anyone. I can sit there and listen to some music. I can listen to someone else's message about happiness or sadness or loss or grief or whatever it is that they're singing about or talking about. And I can sit there for as long as I want to and listen to that, and then turn it off.
Yeah.
And I can walk away from it. Whereas when you're talking to people, you've kind of got to keep that engagement going. And I find that difficult sometimes.
Oh, no, 100%. I do too sometimes, because when you meet a new person, or if it's someone you know and you're going through something and you have a wall up, sometimes you just don't feel like opening up and telling them everything that's going on until you're ready to. And you may not know when that time is at all.
No.
For me, this past week, I didn't know that I still had a bit of a wall. I was a little checked out. And one of my friends just said, "Hey, feel free to vent to me through like a voice memo or whatever." And I go, "Nah, I don't know. I'm fine. I just don't want to talk to anyone." And then the minute I started talking, I went, "Oh, no, hang on. I have more stuff I want to say." And then that kind of clued me into that. But music, this whole week was what I was listening to. I'm going, crap, why am I crying in my car? Like, I'd be at a stoplight and a song would come on and I'm just overcome with emotion on my way to work.
That's fine though.
Yeah.
That's fine. Sit there and feel those emotions.
Exactly.
Don't try and ignore that, and don't try and pretend that they're not there, because if you do that and you bottle that shit up, it's going to come back and hit you tenfold.
100%.
And then that's going to be nothing but negativity. So yes, sit there at the stoplight for 10 minutes or whatever.
I got tinted windows for a reason. I go, that's it. I'm in my own world. Let me live. What was, when you said that mask that you had cracked and you had to deal with it, when was the turning point for you where you went, okay, I need to deal with what's going on?
It's a hard one. That's a hard one to answer. So there's been two occasions. There's definitely been two occasions when it's happened. The first time was when I was 16. But with that one, that was you're 16 years old. What do you know? You don't know nothing really, and all you can do is try and talk to the adults you got in your life, and try and get some help and try and get some guidance. And that didn't happen for me at that time. And then that's from that day forward, that's when I decided to myself that that was it. I was done. I was completely and utterly done. So people could like me, not like me, talk to me, not talk to me. I couldn't give a shit. I really couldn't. And that was the day I think I decided to shut myself down completely from everyone. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I was horrific. But that was my only way that I felt like I could cope with it at the time, because I was just getting no help or guidance from anyone. Not from friends, not from family, not from teachers, tutors, no one. And 2 years ago, it was actually something that had happened to me at work that triggered me to the point where I actually took myself to my local hospital, because I knew if I didn't, I was worried with what I could do, might do.
Yeah.
So that's what I decided to do. I just drove myself down to my local hospital, and that was it. I just said, I need some help. I just broke down there and there in the reception. And that was it, and that's the journey I've been on for the last 2 years, really. And like I say, it's only really been the last 6 months where I think I fully sold the idea to myself that I've got to put some work in. Otherwise, this is it. This is what I'm going to be like for the rest of my life. I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't do it. I don't think I'd be able to do it for the next 40, 50, 60 years, whatever I've got left.
Yeah.
So that's when I started reading more. I started reading everything revolving around philosophy. Whatever your perception of philosophy might be, whether it be
I was
good or
about to
bad.
ask you, I'm curious about what you've learned philosophically and how it's helped you.
So I think the thing that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, or what I would like to try and spend some time to explain to people, is that reality is what you make it. And that sounds like very cryptic Matrix stuff, but for real, it is exactly that. If you put your hand on your heart and you decide you're going to do something today, like stop smoking, and you've convinced yourself today's the day you're going to put that packet of cigarettes in the bin and you're not going to touch a cigarette again, you'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
The second you've got external input from something or someone that's telling you should do this, a doctor or boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, father, whatever it might be, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get defensive and you won't do that. And if anything, you actually end up doing the thing you don't want to do more. But you've got to just be honest with yourself, and that will become your reality. The second you can be truly honest with yourself in terms of what you want to get out of life, that's where stuff will start to make sense. So I'm hand on heart, I'm a full-on nihilist. Life has no intrinsic meaning past what we give it ourselves. There is no bigger picture. We're here for however long we're here for, and there's nothing once those lights turn out. So just enjoy yourself. We've all got a journey to go through. Some of it's going to be good, some of it's going to be bad, but if you don't be honest with yourself and just give yourself the opportunity to do what you want to go and do, you'll always be miserable. So just go do whatever the hell it is you want to go do. You want to go bungee jumping, go do it. You want to go drive a monster truck, go do it. Who cares? Like I say, you're here once. You may as well just go and do whatever it is you want to do and be happy. And happy is relative as well. I say happy. You don't have to be like walking around with a massive smile on your face every day, all the time. It's just be honest with yourself and do what you want to do. And don't worry about what other people say or think.
Just living authentically, right? Just living absolutely authentically, just you, without the outside influence of the people around you.
And
tough.
exactly, and a lot. I think that's hard for a lot of people because of, not because of like, maybe because of how they've been brought up or anything, but it's difficult because of like the environment people come up in. You know, I mean, a lot of people that grow up in big cities, I feel like their reality is obviously going to be different to someone that's, grows up in the country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you're surrounded by millions of people on a daily basis. You're surrounded by people talking, smells, sirens, weather, all these sorts of things have an influence on you and your perception of what you're going through. Someone that grows up in the country where there's like hardly any people, hardly any noises other than the birds and the wind, their environment's a lot different, and they're going to be a lot more, I don't want to say happy because that's not right. They're going to be a lot more aware of what they are feeling, because there's a lot less external stuff they're having to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's, again, something from my own perception of growing up in London to then moving out into the middle of nowhere. I found it a lot easier to calm down in the middle of nowhere than I ever did when I was in the city.
Do you find it helps to quiet? It just definitely probably helps quiet your mind, and you're actually with yourself instead of distracted by everything else around you.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, the biggest distraction is people. You know, people are special, unique in the way that they're very needy. They will take and take and take, and very few will give back. I mean, the last couple of days, myself, for example, I've really struggled. You know, it's I've just needed to take a couple of days away from everything and everyone, and just be on my own, and just me and my dog, and go for a few long walks in the countryside away from everyone, and just experience the experience, because you get lost sometimes, and you don't. Time goes past pretty quick. You don't get the time to appreciate necessarily about what you're surrounded by, and that's where I do feel like I'm quite lucky, in the sense that I get the opportunity to go out into the middle of nowhere where I will not walk into anyone else. I just won't do it. Yeah.
It's good. That's your way of resetting, I'm guessing, right? When things get overwhelming.
Yeah. People are my kryptonite in two ways, because I have like this affinity for people where I will do anything to try and help them, but at the same time, I can't wait to get away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird relationship I've got with people, but there we go.
No, I'm the same way. I'm for a long time I convinced myself I was an introvert, and then come to find out I'm actually both. I'm an introvert and an extrovert, and then you throw in empath in there, and it's like a whole myriad of emotions. But I'm the same way. I can be around people for a little bit, then maybe weeks or a week or a day, and then there'll be days, like for me as well, the last couple of days I don't want to be around anyone. I just need to shut off. I need to reset. I need to be alone. And I find it difficult for some people to understand. They don't understand. They're like, why do you need to be alone? Is your depression coming back? I'm like, well, it's always there lingering, but it's not.
Yeah.
That's not why I need to be alone.
No.
Yeah.
So there's two things there I want to touch on. So one, it's amazing you've got that awareness about yourself, because that's a lot of the time where people struggle, is that they can't understand what they're feeling, and that's what makes it so much harder, and that's where people get lost, and that's where people turn to drink and drugs and crime and whatever else they need to do, or they feel they need to do to distract themselves from whatever it is that they're thinking or feeling. So the fact you've got that is amazing. And that's something for me that is, I say, it's only really been the last maybe half year, 6 months, where I can honestly say, you know what, today I'm feeling good. Let's go. What can I do today? Or, oh no, I'm having a bad day. I'm turning the lights off and going back to bed. You know, that's hard. You know, but again, that comes back down to that idea about being honest with yourself. And that's not always easy, and it's not always realistic, especially depending on what job you do, what commitments you got in life. But I think that is the prime example of why I think the stigma around mental health really needs to just be chopped down and just needs to be dealt with, because imagine how much more productive people would be if they knew they woke up on a Tuesday morning and they knew that if they went to work today, they'd get nothing done because they'd probably end up hiding in the toilet crying their eyes out.
Yeah.
Rather than just phone up their boss and say, I'm having a bad day today. Can you know, I'm really sorry, but I can't do it. How much more happy would people be? How much easier would people be able to just, you know, vent that stuff out, and just one day later they'd be fine. But at this minute in time where we're forcing ourselves to go through the daily mud of trying to drag ourselves through that and try and drag our feelings along with us, and all that happens is we end up getting coated in more mud. We get heavier and heavier until one day you can't move anymore and you're stuck.
Yep.
And then you're in a bad place, you know, and that might take weeks, that might take months to get out of it.
So the quicker we realize it and honor it and feel it and move through it, the less it's going to weigh us down in the long run. I totally get that. That's where I'm at. Before, I'd say my depression, I'd do exactly what you said. Either turn to drinking or drugs or even relationships with other people to distract myself, and then run away from what's internal. And my depression would last longer, months, maybe a year. Now, when I recognize it, feel it, honor it, and move through it, maybe like a day, 2 days, 4 at most, maybe a week. But then I've overcome it, I've gone through it, and then I'm right as rain the next day, and I'm good. But you're right. I think when people recognize that and treat their mental health like they would a cold or a sickness. If you're coming down with a cold or a flu, and you're feeling sick, you rest because you go, okay, I don't want to get the full blown flu. Let me just rest it and get through what I need to get through, and then maybe I'll feel better the next day. Our mental health needs to be treated exactly the same.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you know, I just think the sooner we get there, there's going to be, people's lives will be so much easier, so much happier. But I suppose that's why, you know, you're doing what you're doing, to make hopefully a difference, and to try and highlight this. You know, it's I don't know. I feel like everything else, especially over maybe the last decade, everything else has been really highlighted in terms of like sexuality or gender, and just the whole spectrum, except for mental health. I feel like it's the forgotten taboo, because let's be honest, you could be man, woman, hermaphrodite, you could be, you know, gay, straight, trans. It doesn't matter who you are, you will, and without a doubt, you will have a day where you struggle. And it doesn't matter what you are, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what ideas or ideals you have, it doesn't matter whether you voted for Trump or not, you know, whatever it is, you're going to have a bad day. And if you don't get that support that you need, you're struggling, you're going to be in a bad place.
When you first started that journey, I'm sure it must have been scary and difficult, but as a male, there is some stigma around getting help for your mental health. And how was that for you?
So, I mean, the initial thing where I was at work was hard because I tried opening up to my boss at work, and he literally laughed at me. And I mean, literally laughed at me. So I decided to go to his boss, and he didn't laugh at me, but his reaction was, well, you need to go back and speak to him about it. And I was like, well, hang on a second. I already have. Now I'm coming to you for some help and support. And now you're telling me that I've got to go back and speak to the guy that's just laughed in my face because I've told him that I'm struggling mentally. So yeah, so my initial experience of reaching out and asking for help again was not a good one, which is why I think it was so hard for me to. I literally took a year out before I actually did something about it because I just, yeah, the whole experience and then going through that it just hit me so bad that it was like, you know, fucking hell, I'm asking for help, and these guys are literally looking at me and going, what do you want me to do about it? Well, I need help. what, I don't know. What do you think we should do about it? So yeah, so that was an experience. But once I got myself in a place where I felt like I was actually able to talk to someone again, that's where I phoned up a guy that I was recommended by my GP. Had a 30-minute conversation with him over the phone, you know, which was, it's hard to try and explain, you know, exactly what it is you're trying to explain in half an hour, but just that initial point of reaching out to someone, I think, is the hardest part. So once you've done that, everything else after that gets a little bit easier each time.
Yeah.
So yeah, once I'd done that initial phone call and I went for my first session, yeah, I just every time I went back, it just got that little bit easier every time. And like I said, I started doing a lot more reading. I read things around meditation and stuff like that. Meditation's okay. I didn't find it had a massive impact for me. I suppose my form of meditation is putting my headphones on and listening to some music.
Yeah.
You know, which is fine. And you can literally look at it as a form of meditation. Why not? Some people go to the kitchen and start cooking a cake. You know, whatever keeps you on an even keel, whatever keeps you mindful in the moment, do it. You know, that is a form of meditation. You don't have to sit there with incense burning with a, you know,
Sage.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but again, it's that perception of what meditation is. You know, because if you've done like a questionnaire, one question, what is meditation, and you took that out onto the street and you asked random people what is meditation to you, I guarantee you a lot of them be like, oh well, you sit with your legs crossed and you start humming and you burn sage and you know, you got these two little symbols on your finger and your thumb and you go twing. You know, so
yeah. No, it's true. Everything's relative. Yeah, everything's relative to your own individuality, you know?
Exactly. So it can be sitting with your legs folded with some sage burning in the background. Yeah, it's fine. Why not? For others, it's playing their guitar. For others, it's cooking. For others, it's walking their dog. For others, it's playing with their kids. Whatever it is that keeps you grounded and mindful of what you're experiencing and what you're feeling, do it.
Someone actually asked me one time, how do you get through your how do you take steps to get through your depression? And I told them, well, this is what I do, but for every person it's different. It's not the same. But you have to get to know yourself very deeply first to understand what that is. If you don't, then you're never going to know what's going to help you.
Do you know what? That is the truest. I think that's the first truth people need to accept.
Yeah. There are no
because
steps. Like, it's not in a
no,
manual. You're not, it's not, there's no rule book for your mental health.
no, definitely not. It's you go to your doctor. I've got a bit of a cough. Okay, here's some cough syrup. Off you go. Or or whatever it is you've got wrong with you. There's a medication for that stuff. And yeah, fine. But for you to get to know yourself, you need to sit with yourself. You need to be honest with yourself, and you need to be able to accept stuff that you might not necessarily want to about yourself. But the sooner you do that, the easier everything else will start to happen for you. I mean, through drinking, drugs, and smoking, and stuff like that, I've got to a point where, I'm sat here talking with you right now. I've got a little glass of whiskey, and it's fine. It's fine for me. I can do that. But yeah, there's so many things that I've been able to cut out of my life. There's so many things I've been able to say, no, don't do that anymore. And that just comes from understanding why you're doing those things in the first place.
Yes. No, exactly. I was sober for a year because I was convinced I was an alcoholic. Come to realize that even when I went to these meetings, my own sponsor, she wasn't even like an active sponsor. She was so out of the loop with my steps because even she knew before I even started that I wasn't a true addict. She was, no. She was, you're not an addict. I go, excuse me? But this is what other people are telling me I am. She was, no. She goes, you're not. She was, you just had poor coping mechanisms for your mental health. That's all it is. And then when I understood that, I dated someone last year who said the same thing to me. He goes, are you sure? He goes, I don't think. And I go, no, I really should stay. I can't drink, whatever. Then I start slowly figuring out, no, I can stop. The only reason why I didn't before was because I had so much pain I was trying to escape from. That's it. So once you understand that with those coping mechanisms or addictions or whatever it might be, half the time, no, not even half, I want to say like 80% of the time, it's because you're running away from something.
Yep.
And now when I drink, I'm like, okay, I can have a glass of wine and then that's it. I've enjoyed my night, maybe 2 glasses with some pizza, but I didn't get like crazy or do anything nuts. It's interesting. So I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, that comes from a place of being able to understand why you were doing it in the first place. And once that penny drops and you get that realization of, hang on a second, I'm not drinking because I need to drink. I'm drinking because I don't want to feel the shit that I'm feeling. So once you are again honest with yourself and just go, right, what am I going through right now? Okay, let's not open that bottle. Let's put it to one side. What's happening for me right now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm having a bad time. Okay, why am I having what is having a bad time for me right now? What does that look like? It looks like a bottle of red wine. Right, I better not drink that then.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you open that up, you just know you're gonna. Once you open it up, you go down the rabbit hole, and it's not because you're addicted to it. You're addicted to the perception of what it's covering up.
Yep, 100%. And if you overdo it, it brings out those things you're shoving down. It's
and in not a good way.
No, not in a good. I used to do this thing where I think this was a few years ago. I had like a Thanksgiving. I know you guys don't have Thanksgiving there, but we had a Thanksgiving reunion with some of my friends, and we went out drinking to the bars. And I had a little bit too much, and I noticed that when I did, I started pouring out all my trauma, offloading everything I had ever been through onto my friends who I hadn't seen in 10 years. So they're saying, they're going, holy crap, you went through all that. And I got all emotional. And then the next day I felt crap. I felt like really, really crappy.
But again, it comes back to that whole perception and being honest with yourself and having that realization. And once you get that, that's where things start to click in.
Yeah.
And you can start to either get the help with someone else or help yourself in the way that is going to be healthy.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So without diving into, your history or whatever your trauma or triggers are, what was the moment where you looked yourself in the mirror one day and you thought, it's do or die?
So some of my listeners may know. I don't think all my listeners listen to my stuff consistently, but so this is a good question. In 2019, on July 4th, so Independence Day for us is like a huge, everyone parties their faces off on that day. A few months prior to that, my depression had come back, and I was aware of it, but not how I am now. I was just aware that it was there. I remember talking to a really good friend of mine and letting him know what was going on. Through doing that, my depression became more prominent because I was feeling my feelings. Then a few days later, I had July 4th come around, and I was dating this very, very nice, wonderful man. And he didn't fully understand mental health or depression. So it was hard for him to understand what I was going through. Not his fault. He just didn't, he didn't know. And on July 4th, I was invited to a friend's party. I went there with tons of people I didn't know. We were drinking, but here's the thing. I wasn't paying attention to how much I was drinking. I was just doing it. I'm just kind of off the deep end. And there came a point where me and my boyfriend had gotten into a fight. And something he said triggered me. And I don't remember what it was or how it happened. Nothing bad, just something he said just really sent me into like a dark hole. And I went to the bathroom and I tried to take my own life by finding things I could take to do that, and then combined with alcohol. And oddly, very coincidentally, because my brother's done this before when I was 13, my brother FaceTimes him in the bathroom, crying my eyes out, thinking, I want this to end. I don't want to feel this pain anymore. And my brother FaceTimes me, and he talks me down from that ledge. And he tells me, Sabi, you can't do this. Convinces me and tries to talk me down. And then I simmered down a little bit, and I go, okay. And he said one last thing to me that really got me to just stop. My grandfather, who was my best friend when he passed away when I was 19, his thing that he would always say to us, our last name is Dylan, and he'd always say, Dylan's never give up. And my brother said to me on the phone, Sabby, you can't do this. Dylan's never give up. And I just stopped. So then I was good. I was done. And the next day, my brother had told my family what happened. And my whole life, I had struggled trying to convince my family that my depression was real and that it wasn't an attention-seeking thing. And he did that for me. And then my own dad called me and said, Sabby, I think it's time to give you some help. But yeah, Dad, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to go through. I don't want it to ever be this bad again. The fact that I tried to fully take my own life, like even afterwards, I was okay, but I was like trying to throw myself in front of bloody moving cars. So it just got so bad. It got really, really bad.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing the things we'll do when we get to, I don't like the idea or the concept of hitting rock bottom.
Mm.
I've never been able to sit with that idea properly. But you will go through something, and you will look back and you think, I used to do self-harm, and that was getting bad. I was You know, I look back and now and I think to myself, you know, good God, I mean, if I'd just gone a little bit deeper one day, I think I would have not been able to have been sitting here having this conversation with you. But it was never an intentional thing. And I think that's where it gets a little bit more difficult for people when, so for you, your experience was you realized you didn't want to be able to sit, you just didn't want to sit it there with that pain anymore. You just wanted to do something for it to stop. I had the same idea, but it was with a different reaction to it. But the outcome, you know, very similar sort of situation in terms of could not have been, you know, might not have been sitting here. You know, it's. I think the sooner we start accepting the fact that when someone says they need help, they mean it.
It shouldn't have to take you hitting rock bottom for people to understand it's real. Yeah, it really shouldn't. That's what I learned is if someone says they're depressed and they're going through something or any other mental illness, even anxiety can cause you to become depressed because you have so many self-defeating thoughts. But with anything at all, if you need help and you tell someone and that person doesn't take it seriously, that's still the stigma, is they think that you have to get to the point where we got for you to actually need help, when it really shouldn't even be that way in the first place. It's like we said before, if you get sick and you don't rest properly, you're going to stay sick until you decide to rest and get better. And, you know, thousands of people die from the flu all the time because their immune systems are compromised. It's the same as mental health. You compromise your mental health, there's going to be a time where you're just going to be so hell-bent on doing something detrimental, and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's same thing. If my brother, you know what's interesting? My brother hadn't have FaceTimed me, I would not be sitting here. There's no way. I actually got Dylan's Never Give Up tattooed on my collarbone after that. I was
Quality.
yeah, I was like, that was the most pivotal point. He did that before when I was 13 too. Same thing.
It sounds like your brother got the vibes.
I think he got the vibes. I think he's in my life for a reason. Obviously, obviously, yeah.
What's your brother's name?
Zarek. He has a Greek name.
I'll tell you what, it'd be interesting is do some history on his name. Do some history on his name. I don't know. It sounds bizarre, but there'll be something else that will link up to why he's managed to do that twice for you. There'll be something in there, and it'll blow you away when you find out what it is.
I think you're right. No, I honestly think you're. I'm going to look it up. The last question I ask, and I do this at the end of every single episode. If someone out there is going through exactly what you're going through or can resonate with it in some way, what would you tell them?
It's only as bad as you allow it to become. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how you've experienced it. There's going to be 100 other people that I could meet that have had practically the same experience as what I have growing up. Their perception of what it is they've been through and how it's affected them will be different to mine. For some, it will be so horrific that they will always struggle with it. For others, it will be easier to deal with. But that really comes down to that whole idea again about being honest with yourself and allowing yourself to feel the things you need to feel to be able to help yourself move on. Because like I say, I mean, I'm very stuck on the idea of nihilism, absurdism. You know, we're all stuck on this rock together. You know, each and every single one of us. And we seem to be hell-bent on making our lives as difficult as possible for each other. I just wish I could wake up tomorrow after someone like Thanos has clicked his finger. But rather than half of the world disappearing, we've just woken up with this sense of, realization for each other that we're all struggling with something. And for others, it's harder, and for others, it's easier. But I would say just try and not make it any harder for yourself. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out to people, but it's hard, and not everyone's going to be able to understand that. But don't stop trying. Just because you've asked one person and they don't get it doesn't mean that there's not going to be someone else that you ask and they're not going to be able to help you. There might be the right person at the right time. So yeah, just sit with it, experience it, and accept it, and you'll be able to start helping yourself.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here. It's honestly been such an informative and eye-opening conversation, and I just really love your take on everything, as well as your experience. It's been amazing.
It's been nice to be able to have this sort of conversation at this particular moment in time for me, though. I mean, if we'd done this 6 months ago, I'd have been telling you, fuck the world. I'd have been completely different. But and that's because I hadn't got to a place where I was completely honest with myself, and so yeah, I feel like this conversation has happened at the right time. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. I work on as a page called Warriors Quill, which is the mental health page for poetry and writers that I work on with a couple of other people. I also work on another page called Closer Lives Poetry, with a fantastic group of people on there. Very people orientated page. And they have a couple of different themes where they do. It blows my mind that I'm working on a page like that because of like how my relationship with people are sometimes. But no, it's good. So yeah, so go check that out. Warriors Quill and Closer Lives Poetry.
Thank you so much for listening, and remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.